Welcome to Death and Aliens, an in-depth look at horror and sci-fi TV from two friends who vaguely know what they're doing. I'm MK.
And I'm Courtney.
And Courtney, how are you?
You know, I'm actually doing pretty well. Um, I have started this new thing. So we know how I talked about my Wednesdays that I go and I work and do all this stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
now those have turned into working Wednesdays where I also schedule meetings and go to Zoom meetings, and it's become work, which it's fine because it's in my own time and I just go to my bar and I sit there and I have my martinis and do work. But that means I lost my me time of Wednesday.
Mm.
So the past 2 Fridays, at least, we'll see how long it continues. But the last 2 Fridays, I've been taking myself out for whatever time of day I get off at the office. So like last week I got off at noon. This week I got off at 4. So like I took myself out for happy hour last night. And the first day I just left the office and I was like, I'm done with this. I need to just go sit somewhere, not work, and just go like play games on my phone, listen to my audiobook, and just have a really nice meal. And so I took myself to Sugarfish, and which is
Fantastic.
the best sushi place. And you just pick one of their course selections, and then they just bring you out courses until it's done. And it was beautiful. And last night I really wanted oysters. So I was like, I'm going to take myself out to an oyster bar happy hour. There's an oyster bar 2 blocks from me. I went to
Yeah.
it. It's the same one I went to with Vanessa once, but we went on the Upper West Side because we were going to Shakespeare in the Park. And it's like delicious oysters. They have good like other stuff. So I just got oysters and I got a glass of white wine because that's what it said was the best pairing. And it was. It was delicious. And then I had some nigiri and it was a beautiful moment. And I really reclaimed my day, I guess, and had some good
Yay.
me time. Melissa, and I finished one of the books I was reading, so
Nice.
always good. But yeah, so I'm making sure to find me time still in all of my craziness that's going on.
I love that for you.
Thank you. How are you?
Oh, well. Well, so for those of you who didn't click on this episode on YouTube where we number the episodes, this is the 200th episode of
I
Death and
forgot.
Aliens.
Ah, you even told me and I forgot.
Yes, this is the 200th episode of Death and Aliens.
Yay!
So, when I was just bored during quarantine and was like, maybe I'll start a podcast. I don't know. No one will listen to me. Here I am, 200 episodes and 2 years later.
Almost 3 years.
Oh God, yeah, it'll be 3 years this summer.
I I've totally forgot you told me this. I was gonna stop by like the dollar store yesterday and buy those little like things that you blow that make noises, and I completely forgot. And now I'm
But,
just remembering that.
but because it is the 200th episode and it is a Stargate episode, I have some very exciting things to talk about.
Ooh.
So last week I went to Gallifrey One, which is a Doctor Who convention. And unbeknownst to me, because I was really only paying attention to which doctors were going to be there, on the air in the airport on the way to LA, my dad and I started looking at all of like the when the panels were and the meet and greets and all of that fun stuff. And I looked at these names and I go, hold on, what? And then I had a full-on breakdown in the airport because there's a lovely, lovely man named Ben Browder who was in one episode of Doctor Who, but who's also in 2 seasons of Stargate SG-1.
What
Ah,
seasons? When do we get to him?
not till seasons 9 and 10,
Oh
unfortunately.
my God.
I
Ages
know,
away. I'm gonna
ages
forget he
away.
exists.
But he's really funny because I was talking to him and I was talking to him about the podcast, and he said he was going to listen to it because he also, one of my favorite fun facts, that I think it's been on a DVD commentary at some point, but he told me in person. When he got cast on the show, he prepared by binge watching all 8 seasons before his in 3 weeks.
Jesus. Also, Ben, sorry if you're listening. I will never forget you. I was just kidding when I said that.
And so then when he got on set, they were like asking, like he was like asking questions about things that had previously happened on the show, and all of like the crew and everything was like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" And he was like, "That's when I learned that people don't usually do that." They get
That is so
cast on a show.
strange, though. Like, that's exactly what I would do. Like,
Right, right. Because
what
we
else do
that
they do?
people just come on the show and they
They
just
just show up and know nothing?
yeah,
No, that's unacceptable.
correct.
Unacceptable.
And then there was a woman there named Elena who was in Stargate Universe, but as you guys know, I have not actually watched Stargate Universe, so I still got a picture with her because I got a picture of all 3 Stargate cast members who were there together, but I didn't go and talk to her and get her autograph separate. I did with Ben. And then I also did with Joe Flanagan. And Joe
Name
Flanagan,
sounds familiar.
he plays Colonel Jack Shepard, who is the lead of the Stargate Atlantis team. And I've talked before about how Stargate Atlantis was my sexual awakening.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't just that Jason Momoa was there, it was also Joe Flanagan. And so I might have had a little bit of a panic attack when I met him. And then he was really like he was super nice, and but he was like not really like very like responsive when we first got over to the table, but then he apologized because he was fighting with his teenage son on text message, about just, how teenagers suck, and then he was telling me about how his kids suck. But like in a loving father way, not in a I don't wish I had children
Right.
way. um and then was like talking to us about the weather in Buffalo, and then wrote a cute little message about how he loved meeting me on my picture, and I cried. It was beautiful, and it
That's
was
so
amazing.
nice.
And then, well, that day, as I was sitting there thinking about how amazing this was and how great it was going to be for the podcast to have met these people, I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I started searching just all of the local cons that I could get to just to see who guests were this year.
Uh-huh.
And so on Saturday, April 1st, I am driving to Pittsburgh to meet Richard Dean Anderson.
No. What day of the week is that?
It's
It's
a
a
Saturday.
Saturday. Can I come?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how you're going to get to Pittsburgh, but
I'll take a train. Pick me up in Philly. What's the distance? Is that on the way?
Pittsburgh is 3 hours away from me. Philly is 7.5.
Oh God.
Pittsburgh is my side of Pennsylvania.
Ugh, how do I get to Pittsburgh?
I don't know.
Let's see. Just gotta do a little mapping here. Oh my gosh, that's I want to do that. I want to do that. Oh, could rent a car. I have a driver's license. Oh, it's 5 hours from here. What the heck?
Is it only 5 from the city?
5:45 or a 10-hour
Okay.
train. Yeah, or 6 hours.
I
From five
mean,
hours and 45 minutes to 6 hours and 40 minutes. One of those times.
hmm, yeah, it's 3.5 from me.
I'm so jealous. I don't think I can go because I'm just getting back in that week
Yeah.
from my trip, my conference.
Wait, are you gone for 2 Mondays then?
No,
No, that's just the first week you're back.
Yeah, I'll have taken off the week before at the bar and at the office, and
Yeah.
you know, well, I won't be taking off the hours. I'll be there for work.
Yeah.
So
But
still,
yeah.
will you
So
like secretly like FaceTime me?
yeah. I
Oh
will
my
do what I
god,
can. I will do what I can. Dan is taking me. Because I was freaking out to my dad and he was like, well,
I'm
maybe
gonna
that's one
cry.
that he was like, maybe that's one that you and Dan can do. And I texted Dan and I literally was like, so it's the weekend after my birthday, and we both know that we're not doing anything together on my birthday. And please, 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 please. And I just like sent him a bunch of like puppy dog begging faces and everything. He was like, well, how am I supposed to say no to that? And I was like,
You're
so
not.
so yeah, I'm going.
Oh my god, yeah. I want you to tell him I exist. Tell him I said hello. Ugh,
I'm going to actually cry. Like,
I'm gonna cry, and I'm not even going. Ugh, so
and like
cute. That's so exciting.
I have pictures and stuff with Ben and Joe and Elena, but I obviously wasn't going to share them on the social media until they're relevant because it'll be a little bit before Ben and Joe are on the podcast.
Right, right.
Richard
Fair.
Dean Anderson.
Ah! Oh my god, I don't even know that I can do this episode anymore. I'm
Happy 200
like,
episodes of Jen and Aliens.
oh my gosh, that's so exciting. Oh,
Oh,
I bet he's incredible. I bet he's the nicest person.
I, I can't
Ugh.
wait. I can't wait. That's why I said before we started recording that the world can't end before April 1st.
Yes, that's fair. No, the world can't end before April 1st. Love that.
Yeah.
Oh, so exciting.
So I'm great.
Uh, uh, you are.
I would ask you if you have any spiritual affirmation for me, but I feel like you're overwhelmed by the news I just gave you.
I am, but I also have spiritual affirmations for you. I am prepared. Well, now I don't know where I put, but I do have it. There it is. And it goes along with us, probably.
Okay.
Whew. I'm better. I'm ready. And one day, just like that, you'll rediscover your light, you'll embrace your inner warrior, you'll grab your power back, and the whole game will change.
Yes.
We're having a very uplifting episode.
We
For
are.
those of you who normally listen to us, welcome to this new era we're in today.
I know,
It
I
won't
know.
last.
Who
But,
are these people?
right. Ugh, so exciting.
Um, so we're talking about Stargate SG-1 Season 3, Episode 4.
Only 6 seasons away from Ben.
Well, kind of. Because that's also about the time that you have to start interlocking Stargate
Only
Atlantis.
75 seasons away from Ben.
um, I also found a very interesting website that I saved because I was like, when we get to the point where they want us to do SG-1 and Atlantis at the same time, do they want us to just do a season at a time or like back and forth with the episodes? There is actually a specific order.
Great. I'm gonna need like a printout of that that you like tape
Correct.
to my forehead so I don't forget
We're gonna have
the
to like
order.
post it ahead of time and be like, for the next 6 weeks, this is the order we're watching episodes in because like it's usually back and forth, but then it'll be like this time it's two SG-1s in a row. And then like I hate everything,
I'm
but I
so
don't.
excited.
I
You know how much I love chaos, so I'm very excited. And I
know.
will text you every time before I start watching an episode to make sure I've read it
Sure.
correctly and that we're watching the same episode.
Perfect.
I do that now when we watch in order. Like,
Yes. This episode is called Legacy, which I only vaguely understand why that's the
I
title.
mean, I get it. It's
there's like two different things that could be counted as a legacy in the episode. So like I kind of get it, but also I don't feel like it has anything to do with what's actually happening in the episode.
no, I think it's the legacy of Michello
Well,
like coming to light. But
that's what I was thinking. Michello's legacy, but also Jolinar's legacy. But then also, I could have thought of a better name for the episode.
I mean, yeah, probably a better name for sure. But I think it's Michello because it's showing how his legacy has come to fruition and
Yeah,
how it doesn't matter anymore. They broke it.
it's true.
And Jolinar could still come back around. I'm sure Jolinar will still come back around in
Right.
conversation. So
Um, it was rated 7.4 stars, which is low. But again, we this season everything's kind of rated very meh.
and I
Um,
also might would have rated it a little lower than some others. So like
yeah, I think of the four we've seen so far, it's probably the weakest. So I'm not mad about it being low. I just don't know if like seven is really like that because 7.4 is closer to seven than to eight, and I don't know about that. I'm trying to remember if I know I looked at the beginning of the season of what the lowest rating for the whole season was, and I'm trying to remember if it no, it was not this one. There is one that does dip below seven. Yeah, there is one that dips below seven. So when we get there, we'll talk about it as it being the lowest. But this is Seth was rated lower than this,
yeah.
which is fair. We liked it because we like cults, but it wasn't a great episode. Um, and this one at least felt like it at least made logical sense in continuing to discover things about the Goa'uld.
Right.
You know, yeah,
Yeah, it still like logically made sense.
yeah. Um, episode came out in July 16th, 1999. The number one movie was Eyes Wide Shut, which I have never seen.
I haven't seen it either, but I've heard a lot about it, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, it's a Stanley Kubrick thriller, which obviously puts
Mhm.
it in a special category of movies. It stars Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise, and it was actually their last film together before they got divorced. Um, which sometimes I remember that Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise were married, and that's weird to me. But it's fine.
I remember they were married. They've been through they've both been through relationships.
Well, but the weird thing is, so this movie came out before they got divorced, but
Hmm.
after she left Scientology.
Oh,
So, like, that must have been a fucking weird time in their relationship.
yeah.
Um,
I bet it was. Good for her though.
so like they also then made a Stanley Kubrick thriller together while dealing with all of that. So,
It's
whatever. The number one song was Bills, Bills, Bills by Destiny's Child,
fine. Yeah, it was.
which is from my favorite Destiny's Child album. And also was the number one comeback song of 2021 because of TikTok.
Okay. Good for TikTok.
Right. Like, because the Can You Pay My Bills part was like a TikTok audio for a hot minute there last year or 2 years ago. Um, Number one book was the same as last week. Summer of 99 was all going to be really the same. On this day, the Liberty Bell 7, which was part of the Mercury program, which was the NASA program before the Apollo program. So the first time they were attempting to send men into space at all. This was a shuttle from that program that did not survive, but it was recovered from the ocean floor. Um, it actually fell so hard that it was deeper than the Titanic. And it was originally launched in 1961, but was not recovered till summer of 99.
Wow.
This is also, speaking of things from the 60s, this is also the day that JFK Jr.'s plane crashed happened.
Not a great day. It was a rough
No.
day. So a lot of weird things happened.
Yeah. Um, the the number of people in the Kennedy family that have been assassinated is to this day one of the most fascinating things in the entire history of our nation to me
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah.
I I I have so many questions that will never be answered because I do not have
Right.
top level CIA clearance.
No. I also do not because if I did, I would tell you, and that's why I'm not allowed to have it. So, you know,
Um, this episode was directed by Peter DeLuise and written by Tor Alexander Valenza, so nobody
no
knew.
wonder.
I did want to shout out one person though, because one of the things that I did when I went to this Doctor Who panel or Doctor Who thing was I went to a panel about filmmaking in the 21st century with a bunch of people, including Chris Chibnall, like the former showrunner of Doctor Who,
Okay.
he wrote all of Broadchurch.
Oh, God, I love Broadchurch.
Hmm.
Oh, such a good show.
But one of the things that he and the other like multi hyphenates, they were talking about being multi hyphenates, being writer, director, blah blah blah. One of the
Mhm.
things that they were talking about a lot on the podcast, or not the podcast, on the panel, is that one of the things that people don't realize is as important in filmmaking as it is the editor. Because, fun spoilery tidbit for the end of Doctor Who, I don't know if you
I'm not
consistent.
there.
Well, I'm okay, but you know that
The end of what Doctor Who?
Jodie Whittaker's last episode.
I don't know her last episode, so don't tell me what happened.
No, no, no. It's not. It's just about the end of the episode, like about the fact that she regenerates. It won't tell you anything about the
Oh,
episode itself. So
yes, I
the
understand the
last,
concept of
yes,
Doctor Who.
yes, the last thing that she says in the episode before she regenerates is "tag, you're it,"
Mm,
which is adorable.
mhm.
That is not what the last line of hers in the script was. Like there were four lines that she says as she's regenerating, and the script order is very different than what happened in the show. And what happened was the editor changed some things up and then said to Chris Chibnall, "If you don't like it, we'll go back." But I just thought this order felt better. And she played it for him, and he was like, "No, you're absolutely right." And so, and everybody, like the number of t-shirts and pins and everything that just say "tag your it" on it would not have happened if the editor hadn't changed this. So I wanted to show some love to the
Oh, that.
editors. Also, I'm like, fuck it. We don't ever talk about the editors, but we talk about all the
No, we
things about.
should.
We should, because we talk about lighting and we talk about like the music in certain moments and stuff. And like the director might have a say in how that happens, but the editor is the one who does that.
Right. Who makes it happen?
So the editor of this episode was a man named Alan Lee, um, who has a ton of editing credits. Um, continue like a lot of them are like the things that we always talk about with the show, like um other Stargate properties. Continuum shows up a lot in here.
Mhm.
Tin Man, which I talked
The
about
show you
before.
know that no one else knows. Yeah.
Correct, the one with Alan Cumming as the Tin
Right.
Man. um more recently he has worked on the Snowpiercer TV show.
Oh, that one's popular right now.
Yeah, Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, that TV show with God, what is the name of that guy who's in it? Um, oh, Elijah Wood is who is the lead, but that's not who I was thinking
That's
of.
not who you're thinking. Yeah.
No, but Elijah Wood is the lead of that. And then his most recent project is called Flowers in the Attic: The Origin, which is a mini series that is started in 2022 that I have never heard of until right now in this moment. But like,
But based off the VC Andrews book,
yeah.
I just bought the VC. I have
It
it right
says
here.
says this limited series tells the origin story of Olivia and Malcolm and how dark family secrets shaped the Foxworth family that from everything that happened.
I haven't read it yet, but I have this book and it's got Flowers in the Attic and Petals on the Wind in it.
And this is like this miniseries is a prequel to those two books.
I'm going to read this really fast then with the
Okay,
700.
perfect. Yeah.
868 pages and watch that.
Yeah. So Alan Lee is our editor. He is most of his film credits are for editing. He has one directing credit, which is for a later episode of Stargate. So he moved into the directing chair later in the series.
Good for him.
Our guest star for this episode is Eric Schneider, who plays one of the doctors.
Walter?
No, not the one who's in the end, because he was in a season 1 episode and I already talked about him. The psychiatrist. I know. I was going through and I was like, oh, fuck, I already talked about him. It was a year ago, but I did. Right. The psychiatrist from the first doctor scene. It was Eric Schneider. He is known for Needful Things. I don't know what that is.
I've heard of it, but I don't know anything about it.
Stargate SG-1 and Mobile Suit Gundam.
I'm sorry?
It is an anime.
Okay. Is it one word?
No, mobile phone, suit, Gundam.
Okay, so you just said it as one word. It's not actually one word.
No, but most people do just say Mobile Suit Gundam.
Got it.
Yeah.
MSG.
Correct. But not the tasty MSG that Uncle Roger tells us to use.
Or the arena in New York City.
He was born in 1934 and did unfortunately pass away last year.
Oh.
Yeah, in May. So while we were doing the podcast, but before we knew he was relevant to the podcast. So
that's sad. And we should have. Shame on us.
Yeah, it is a shame. But he was in like 3 episodes and we didn't know him.
Oh, this is the doctor, not the editor.
The doctor. Yes.
I skipped.
Yes. No,
totally
sorry.
We would have known.
Yes, the doctor. We would have not have known.
You said that. My brain just didn't listen. It's fine.
It's all right. So that is our team for this episode. We start the episode exploring a tunnel that seems to be completely abandoned. And it has an ancient Goa'uld design that they are not super familiar with, but Teal'c knows what it is. And the Mel has detected no signs of life. But the way they talk about it clearly makes you feel like something is not quite right with that.
Right.
Super sketchy.
Shocker. Why we started an episode with nothing.
Right. So Teal'c opens a door and they find a ton of dead Goa'uld bodies, and then we get the credits.
Yeah. I don't think they played the credits right on Pluto when I was watching, or maybe I missed it, but I was like, I feel like I never saw the credits.
Oh. No, because I watched it at work, so I watched it on Pluto, not on the DVD, and that's where the credits were, because I made a little note of credits.
Maybe I believe that it happened, because I remember explicitly thinking while I was watching it, I was like, I haven't seen the credits yet. Just didn't see them. It's fine.
Okay.
That was before coffee.
Fair. I was at work and I was taking notes, and you know how I am with that theme song. I'm embarrassing when I watch this in public.
Exactly.
But I also was thinking about how mad I was that I had to watch it on Pluto with commercials when I could just wait till I got home, but I didn't know when I was going home and I wanted to be ahead of the game.
Fair.
So I was perturbed. But then the Goa'uld, we find out, like, as they're searching the cavern and finding symbols and everything, we find out that the Goa'uld that are there are part of a league of lesser Goa'uld who wanted to challenge the system lords. I think they said Limvris was the name of Limvris I never wrote it down because it was never that important to me, but I was like, I think I remember what it is. It'll be fine.
So is Limvers, is that it's like a mini system lord, or is that the like crew of
It's
people?
it's like the crew of people. So it's like
Okay,
it's
okay.
basically like the Tok'ra, but it's not because
Got it.
it's only nine people and they don't want to like save humanity. They just want to kill the other system lords.
Got it. I wasn't sure if it was nine separate and one of them was Limvris or if they're like
Oh
whole
no,
group
it's
of
that's like
Limvris.
it's like the cult name.
Got it. Got it. I kept
So
calling them baby system lords.
that's fair. I mean, that's what they were trying to be. There were nine of them, and all of them are dead and in this room.
Sam
So
goes, nine? Found them. I was
yeah,
like, yep.
yeah. Chill's like there were nine of them, and she's like one, two, yeah. Here we go.
Yep.
Um, so then on top of the altar that's in this weird chamber, Daniel finds one of those tablets with like that they could read that like Michello showed them how to read these tablets.
Okay, can we pause right here? Can you give
Absolutely.
us a small summary of Michello? Because I understand we saw him on P expanded numbers planet,
Yes.
and I don't remember anything else about him.
So Michello was the one who invented the machine that made them switch bodies, and he was the
Got it.
so he has all that weird Goa'uld fighting tech, and then he was like a
Right.
100 billion years old, and he was also played by
Right.
Michael Shanks.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
So they find one of these little tablets that they can read, and it has battle plans on it. And Daniel is trying to read it, but he needs the thing because it's like a stone tablet, and you need like a handheld thing that goes over it that changes the letters. So he needs the little hand part thing, and Jack finds it on the ground. So Daniel picks it up, and when he turns the page, he like feels something brush by him, and he's like, "The, uh, uh, I have a weird feeling." And Jack's like, "Me too. Let's stop hanging out with the dead people and go back to like get checked out for diseases," which is the valid response. Um, so back at SGC, they're like doing decontamination, taking showers, whatever. And Daniel gets out of the shower and he hears something whispering his name, which was like mad fucking creepy.
Right.
And he thinks it's Sam calling him, but then Sam comes to get him for their briefing, and he's like, "Were you just calling me?" And she's like, "Absolutely not. I don't have any idea what you're talking about."
Right.
Um, so they go to the briefing, and based on the studies, this is apparently they're apparently able to study corpses incredibly quickly.
Yeah.
If they're doing the briefing and the amount of time it took them to like get home and shower, Dr. Fraser like did these tests hella fast.
Faster than we can do.
Yeah. So we find out that the Goa'uld were killed before the hosts, but there's nothing left to study because and this is an important scene purely because this is a question that has come up on the podcast before of things that were left unanswered in the show is what the fuck happens to the Goa'uld body once it's dead inside of the host? Like, why is there not like still a dead snake inside of Sam? And the material decays in their system and like it becomes like a blood protein.
Right.
So that's why she still has like weird Goa'uld powers, but no like snake in her body. But so there's nothing left for them to study of the Goa'uld hosts to know why they died because of the decay. And but the humans seem to have just died of starvation. There is like nothing because they were locked in this chamber. There's nothing to have killed them.
Right.
And Hammond wants to know who killed the Goa'uld and why. Um, But since the door was disabled from the inside, Sam is like, maybe the killer was still in the chamber and we let the killer escape when we opened the door. And of course, because it was invisible, their first guess is Ritu. And Teal'c's like, it would not have been Ritu because A, I didn't feel anything. And B, the Ritu would not have spared the host. They would have just killed everybody.
A lot of times when they don't know what's happening, their first guess is Ritu.
It is a little like a little much, but to be fair, it's the only thing they've ever encountered that's fucking invisible. And if you don't know
Right.
what's going on and you know that you're trying to fight something that can be invisible, I would probably jump to that conclusion more than necessary also.
I mean, that's probably true, but you know how intensely it affects Tilk. And he's just like super chill in all of these instances with like Ritu, and he's like, nope, didn't feel anything. Like
Right.
it's like
So
immediately shot down every time.
every time, but you know, Jack is very singularly focused and it's invisible and he doesn't like things that he doesn't understand. We have very much learned that. And
Yes.
so if he doesn't have an answer, that must be the answer.
Yep, that's true.
Um, but then, so then they're like, okay, we just gotta figure out what's going on. And Hammond tells Daniel to keep working on trying to figure out what this tablet says. And then the gate is clicking because SG7 is returning, and they're standing at the window watching SG7 come back. And Daniel just like sees them all as corpses instead of people.
A little unsettling.
It was really quite uncomfortable because I was like, what genre is this show? Because that feels
What are
very
we
much
currently
like,
on?
right. I'm like, that feels very much like something that like it was so unsettling that when I told Courtney this morning that I had a nightmare last night, she asked if I had watched Stargate before bed because it was like not not what we're used to seeing.
Right.
Um, but so then Daniel's in his like room attempting to translate the tablet some more, and he finds the word infiltration, which seems to be important because they just keep repeating infiltration.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was a choice in editing to just
They did.
focus on that word a little bit much. But then he hears a voice calling him again. And then he hears the chevrons of the gate clicking inside his closet. And he opens it, and there's just like a wormhole inside the closet. And the voice is like telling him to join them. And then a zombie
Yeah.
ghost pulls him into the wormhole.
Yeah. It
Again,
was wild.
straight out of a horror movie.
I was like, is this real? I was like, do we get to just like make makeshift stargates? Like, what's happening?
Absolutely not. No.
Yeah.
But then we wake up in the infirmary because he probably slammed his head into the closet when he thought there was a wormhole in it. Um, and Daniel tells Jack about the dead Goa'uld in his closet, and Jack clearly doesn't believe him.
Right.
Um, and Daniel's like, "Do you believe in ghosts?" And Jack's like, No. And he's like, "Yeah, no, me either. But if these aren't ghosts, I'm losing my fucking mind, and I'd rather believe they were ghosts than that I'm
Right.
absolutely fucking crazy."
Which I totally get. Totally get that.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but then Dr. Mackenzie, who is the name of the doctor that I couldn't remember, who is
Right.
played by the actor. Dr. Mackenzie is a psychologist, and he is interviewing the whole team because he thinks that gate travel is causing psychological damage. Which, to be fair,
It's logical.
is illogical because you have no idea what going through a wormhole actually does to the human body, and like,
And you think about when you use like blue powder, if you don't do it just right, you splint.
yeah,
And so maybe your
like
brain's doing that in Stargate.
right, like there could be some kind of like consequence that we don't understand. And if Daniel's losing his fucking mind, and to be fair, Daniel doesn't have any military training to deal with like psychological trauma the way the other three would.
Right.
So it makes sense. And Hammond decides to temporarily shut down all gate travel so that all of the members of all of the SG teams can be evaluated because they believe that Daniel has gate-induced schizophrenia.
Which is wild. And I do want
Wild.
to talk to that in like 30 seconds, but it was
Yeah.
really funny when Jack's like, well, can't we just put up a sign up that's like Stargate maybe hazardous to health? And Sam's immediately like, yeah, that's great. I was like, hold up. A very quick decision for something that may induce schizophrenia in people.
Right.
But yeah, psychologically,
Yeah.
that's like a wild thought, though, that like
Right.
Stargate can induce schizophrenia.
Right. Like, and also like I understand that schizophrenia is something that we don't understand all of the potential causes of it and that there are different types of schizophrenia, that there's like genetic factors, but there's also just like the whole idea of like to bring it to like our thriller stuff. Norman Bates basically has schizophrenia that is like trauma induced.
Yeah.
So like it's not the wildest conclusion. My concern is that they jumped from 0 to 100,
Fair.
which
Fair
I
to be
mean,
concerned about that.
and then like Jack even says like you were jumping to schizophrenia like because he had one off day. And Janet's like, yes, but he had both visual and auditory hallucinations. Like she's listing the things that it's like, well, when you put it that way,
But also, like, could be stress. Jack's not like out of the realm of possibility.
right.
Like, stress does
No.
really crazy things to people's bodies.
And also like it could be like lead poisoning. This is a really
Yeah.
weird way to connect it, but there was an episode of Grey's Anatomy where one of the doctor has had a hip um not like had a hip transplant, but the hip that they used had mercury in it and it broke, like something broke in it and the mercury was leaking into his bloodstream and so he was having like hallucinations and all this kind of weird like mental stuff and people were thinking that he was losing his mind and the one doctor was like, "I think he has mercury poisoning." And then it turned out that he was right and they had to redo his entire hip
Yeah.
transplant. But like there's a lot of things that cause hallucinations that are
Could be a gas leak.
less right. I mean, and I guess that's why they're like, we're going to pause things and keep him contained and test everyone before we make a like final determination. But like mercury poisoning, a gas leak, a stress like break in your like a mental break because of stress that can be easily like, there's a lot of things that it could be
Yeah.
that are not schizophrenia. And I don't know if like I just feel like that word is a big jump.
I think knowing so little about it, knowing how little it like how hard it is to diagnose in the beginning anyways, makes it a very big leap. Cause like there are so many other easy things to rule out before you get to that and you
Mm-hmm.
didn't even try. Like,
Or at least not that they told us.
right. But like it
So,
wasn't that long. They couldn't have ruled out everything by then.
right. Right. Like, how long does it take to test for mercury poisoning?
Right.
Well, but to be fair,
Probably
also,
not that long, but
not that long, especially if they're able to like detect lack of Goa'uld bodies in the host and the amount of time it takes Daniel to shower. So, like, I don't, who
right.
knows?
I don't know, maybe he takes long showers. We don't know.
That's true. Um, but so then Daniel is hanging out with Jack, playing chess and like talking about all of Daniel's symptoms, trying to like, because Jack doesn't believe in ghosts, but he also doesn't believe that Daniel's like bonkers.
Right.
Until Daniel hears the gate like dialing in the closet again, and he like very much is like being like, no, that's not real, that's not real, that's not real. And he's like talking himself out of it until he sees a Goa'uld climbing on Jack and going into his neck. And then he just like full on attacks Jack to try to get the Goa'uld out of his neck.
But also like losing your mind or ghosts are the only options we have. Like nothing else in between. Not like lack of sleep. Oh, we mentioned a stress response earlier. That's off the table now. Just ghosts or losing your mind. That's it.
Correct. Correct. I mean, that's usually when I hear things that aren't there. I assume ghosts or losing my mind or wild animals. But they're so far underground that wild animals is off the table. And then,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, so he like lays on the floor to calm down while Jack calls the infirmary, and then we get a close up on something moving under his skin, and I wanted to vomit.
I didn't love that. I didn't love
Um,
that.
um, but unfortunately, because he had another breakdown, Daniel gets transferred to a mental health unit. He is put in a nice padded room. And the rest of the team goes to see him, and he's very confused and also very blind because they took away his glasses so that he doesn't hurt himself with them.
Also, you take away my glasses, I will start seeing things. I can't. I don't know what's going on.
I don't wear my glasses, but I also understand that that is a personal choice that I'm making that is damaging to my long-term health. Except for when I fell and injured myself in LA, I was really glad I wasn't wearing my glasses because I could not imagine what my
Stab
face would
you.
have, right. It would have
Mm-hmm.
been anyway. But Daniel starts crying and apologizing for being a head case, and I had to pause it because I was so upset.
See, and it didn't hit me as hard as I felt like it should have, but I figured it did to other people. And I wonder if that was like a you have the connection from watching so much of Stargate that it hit you so much harder watching it this time, or if you had that
I
same reaction the first time you watched it.
I don't remember because I watched it so much younger the
Right.
first time I watched it, but I had a friend in high school who did have a schizophrenic break and was convinced that one of their other friends' moms was dead for like 6 months and they weren't.
Jeez.
And so like I remember when she found out that that had all not been real and like how traumatizing that was.
I bet.
And so like part of it is that I have that experience to go on of like somebody being like, I can't stop being crazy. I want to stop being crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's why that was rough for me. But I also don't know that other people would necessarily, because I don't think it was bad acting, but I also don't feel like I felt like it was maybe a little bit of a leap if you didn't, because, but it was,
I
I
felt
don't
like
know.
it was a little bit of a leap because it was like I didn't have the like emotional investment that and I love Daniel. Not that I don't love Daniel Jackson.
Yeah.
Let me start there. But just the way it was handled, I didn't have the emotional attachment to, which is why one of the reasons I think that it was okay that it was rated a little bit lower because there were times like this that you could
Mm-hmm.
see where they tried to do something and it just didn't really work.
Right. And it's not that we don't love Daniel and everything. But it's also like they didn't, the looks on, like when they kept flashing to Jack and Sam and Teal'c's face, like they weren't as upset as I wanted them to
Yeah,
be. Like, and if they would have been more, like Sam looked like she was crying a little bit, but like if they would have been more broken at him being broken, I think that would have made it
I
easier
agree.
for us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, um, and Teal'c also kind of takes this moment to be like, we don't think you're a head case. Like something is wrong. Like it has to be something wrong. It's not, you're not just crazy. Um, and
But also as
they,
a side note, people with schizophrenia aren't crazy. It's just a just as like a broad term.
right. No, yes. And also in the last 20 years, things have changed so much in awareness and understanding of mental health conditions. And it's hard because the word crazy has a like negative stigma and people don't really like the use of that word. I don't use it in a negative way because, like,
Right.
believe me, I'm up there with the best of them. Uh,
And I
but
know, like, you know that. I just want to make sure everybody listening
no,
also knows
yeah,
that we know that.
but it's also hard because in the show that they like Jack talks about people being nuts and like Daniel calls
Yeah.
himself a head case and they're using a lot of words that like in 2023 we would not see being used to portray
Hmm.
mental illness, but it was 1999. It was
Right.
not, and I even then I don't necessarily know that those words were meant aggressively. They just
I don't
were
think they were.
very ignorant in the true sense of the word ignorant.
Hmm.
Um
I agree.
and they kind of believe him that something is happening until he starts hallucinating again.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then he tells them that one of the ghosts is in the room with them, and they're like, no, not. It's really not. And so he starts like freaking out, trying to kill this ghost that doesn't exist. And Teal'c
That's that's also another visual choice that I think I would have done differently because they made a point to show how things were so blurry and he couldn't really see because without his glasses. But then when they show this guy, like we can see it clearly and we can see him there. And I wish when we flipped to that scene, it would have been like a really blurry scene and you
it
could have
would have
been
been
like,
like the same as his vision in
yeah,
other things. Yeah, that would have been an interesting choice, but I don't know. Again, I don't know how much of that was a technology thing.
yeah, and
Because,
that's totally fair. That's totally fair.
but when Teal'c grabs him to try to calm him down, the bug jumps from him to Teal'c, and then they start to lock, and then they lock Daniel up again. The rest of the team leaves, and Daniel is in his little room, uh, like dreaming, and of the voice inside of like the in his head thanks him for delivering it to the Goa'uld so that they can destroy it.
Little does he
Which
know, he is the voice inside of his head.
true. Yes, actually, literally. Um, but then the rest of the team gets back to SGC and Teal'c starts to get sick like immediately.
Yeah.
Um, and Daniel has a weird dream flashback and realizes that the bug was one of Michello's inventions.
Mhm.
Hence the title Legacy, I guess. Um, and then back at the SGC, Janet tells them that Teal'c's symbiote is dying and that there is no reasonable cause. Um, then we go back to the mental health unit, and Dr. Mackenzie is trying to give Daniel his medication. And Daniel's like, actually, like, I don't need more drugs. I just need to get the sedatives that are already in my system out of my system so that I can think clearly. And Dr. Mackenzie's like, that's not how this works. And as we know from watching Bates Motel, that is for sure not how it works if you are actually schizophrenic.
Right. Right.
And Daniel's trying to explain his situation, and it only makes him look crazier. But then he like admits that he's like, I can see how this is not helping my case. I do recognize. I recognize why you were giving me that look, but and so he's like, I will make a deal with you. You call SGC and find out if Teal'c is sick. And if Teal'c is sick and they don't know why, you have to let Jack talk to me.
And he's not even like, release me, I'm going over there. He's like, I just want to talk to Jack if all of these things are happening.
Right. And he was like, and if that's not true, I'll take the drugs. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but please. Because in his mind, with what he has figured out, if there really was a bug and it jumped into Teal'c and Teal'c is sick, he has figured out what happened. And if not, then
Mm-hmm.
he actually has lost his mind. Like that's the
Right.
conclusion he's come to. So it's not even like a bargaining because he like wants out. It's a bargaining because either his friend is dying because of whatever happened, or he actually has lost his mind and he needs to know which
Mm-hmm.
one of those two is true.
Right.
Um, so we don't see the phone call. We just see Hammond coming to tell Jack that he needs to go see Daniel because clearly we know.
Yeah.
Um, and so then Daniel explains everything to Jack, who like is starting to see that Daniel's making sense, but it still doesn't really make sense.
Right.
But he takes him back with him to SGC, and Daniel explains his theories to the team. And Sam is like, okay, well, if that's true, we took everything that was at Michello's lab. It's in the database at Area 51. Like, let me look through what it is to see if this is really a thing. And they look through the database and they find the device that Daniel used to read the tablet and find out that there is actually a Goa'uld hand reading device, but Nacello also made like a dupe that is a
Right.
weapon.
Right.
Um, so Sam and Janet test the device from Area 51 over the tablet to see what is happening and find the weird parasites that Daniel saw. Um, and there are 10 of them in each little rock, which explains why there were 9 limbrous and then there was still one alive to
Mm-hmm.
jump into Daniel. But it turns out the hazmat stuff does not protect from these parasites.
Does not. No.
They eat their way through the gloves and jump into Sam, Teal'c, and or Sam, Jack, and Janet. Um, they're all infected, and Janet is like, since there are multiple organisms in each of them, they're gonna lose sanity faster. And like Jack, or not Jack, Daniel and General Hammond and the other doctor are literally just like sitting in the galley watching this happen and they can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Um, and then like Janet starts to freak out and Jack starts to freak out and Sam is like totally fine.
Yeah.
And she's like completely unaffected. And then all 4 of the parasites that were in her like fall out of her ear dead, which was also disgusting.
Yeah. Didn't love that.
Um, and they're like, well, I don't understand. And she's like, well, maybe it's because of Jolinar. That's the other thing that they jump to that conclusion a lot. Like every time they don't understand the bad guy, it's Ritu. Every time Sam can do something that people don't understand, that people can't do, it's Jolinar.
But to be fair,
The problem is it actually is always Jolinar.
right. That's
Um, and Daniel also, I think why I would have given this episode more a higher rating than it actually earned was for the fact that there was randomly a ton of expositional dialogue that answered questions that we already had, like the why there's no snake in Sam's body. And then this one,
mhm,
why Jack doesn't have all these abilities that Sam does.
right.
But because of the Goa'uld starting to freeze in the deep freeze and trying to escape, it never actually bonded to Jack and didn't decay
Right.
in his body. So
Mhm,
he doesn't have the weird protein marker of the dead Goa'uld, but Sam does. But they figure out that the protein in Sam's blood can, in fact, kill these bugs because basically the bugs are robots, really, more than anything. And
yeah.
their purpose is to kill Goa'uld. So if they have the protein marker of dead Goa'uld, their job is done.
Right.
Um, So Sam's like, cool, I'm just gonna like inject my blood into other people so that they have the protein marker. And the other doctor is like, you can't do that because you don't have the same blood type as them and they will die.
He's like, that's not how blood works. Let's start
Which that
there.
was my first thought. She was like, "We'll just inject my blood." I go, "That's not healthy."
I definitely didn't think about that. I was like, yep, great plan. Let's do
Mm,
it. That's why I'm not
I
a
was
doctor.
right. I was like, probably not. And then the doctor was like, "No, blood type, not a thing." And I was like, "See." But then Janet's like, just put the blood in the centrifuge and separate the red blood cells because your red blood cells are what give you a blood type. And then I thought
Genius.
about why the Red Cross likes platelet donations so much better than blood donations because platelets can be used more because they don't have a blood type.
Uh, my whole world is changed.
Right? Stargate teaching real science.
Real science.
Um,
Life changing.
so she separates the red blood cells and injects Janet and Jack, and it works. So then they also inject Teal'c, and they don't know if it'll work because he would still have the symbiote in him, but it does. And everyone is smiling, and the episode is over. That is Stargate. Um,
Yes.
so again, you're right. Was not the best episode, but it did answer two plot hole questions that we previously had and teach us the science of red blood cells. And so, in my mind, it is a win.
Yes, correct.
Um, do you have any thoughts or theories as you, while I
No,
also try to find the episode to make sure I didn't miss any trivia?
sure. I have no thoughts. I don't know anything of where we're going. I'm thinking this is the end of what we're going to hear from Michello. I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm assuming they called it legacy because they were like, here's his legacy. It's over now. His character's done. So that's my thought is that this is the end of Michello for us, even though I thought the last episode was too. Um, yeah, I don't know. I did think it was good the way it explained the difference between Jolinar and the gold that got inside of Jack. I think that was probably the like cherry on top for this episode.
Yeah. There was no trivia, but there were apparently a ton of goofs.
Okay.
Um, the first one says that when Carter put the blood sample into the centrifuge, she does not balance the centrifuge before spinning the sample. I understand why that is a goof, but also they probably just didn't have time for that shit.
Yeah.
Um, this is a continuity error that I cannot read because it spoils something later in the episode. I was reading it and then I was
Great.
like, I started to read it and then I go, I no. When Daniel removes his glasses to put on his gas mask, but it's obvious that his gas mask does not have corrective lenses, there are wireframe lenses that clip inside the eyepiece of a mask, and it's standard procedure for anyone with corrective lenses and has a gas mask to have custom lenses already inside the mask. So that's just like they obviously, if these are their gas masks, he should not have had that one. He should have had the one that already has corrective lenses.
Right. So it's a lot of logical goofs that correctly are goofs, but I would have never noticed if you didn't tell
Correct.
me. Got it.
When they first discover the nine dead Goa'uld at the start of the episode, you see Samantha Carter shining a flashlight across the character's back and neck to show the entry scar. Then, as she's talking and moves toward the dead body's face, you can see the actor blink when the light is concentrated on his closed eyes. Okay, but like to be fair, don't shine a flashlight in somebody's eyes when they're supposed to be closed.
Right.
Um, Factual errors. Dr. Fraser theorizes that the nine dead Goa'uld were locked in that room with no food and water and died of starvation. However, it takes the average human 3 to 4 weeks to die of starvation, whereas one can only go 5 or 6 days at the most without water. So they would have died of dehydration before dying of starvation. Right. And then there's a continuity error about where the pieces are on the chessboard that doesn't even make sense to me.
Okay.
So yeah, just factual errors about science.
Got it.
Oh, Would you like to punch?
Machello, because he
Fair.
didn't outline his technology very well. He created
Fair.
it and then just kind of like released it into the world to like make everyone
Fair.
sick and crazy.
But isn't that what mad scientists do?
And that's why I want to punch him in the face.
Okay.
I'm not saying he's not a mad scientist, I'm just saying,
Fair. Fair, fair, fair.
you know,
Um, also, oh, so then who do I want to punch? That's the
right,
next
yes.
question we usually answer.
It is, it
Um,
is.
I guess Dr. Fraser, just for not having faith in these people. Like, I know that like her job is to be the doctor and to like be the voice of reason, but like Dr. Mackenzie just like comes in with these sweeping like things about her team that she's worked with for so long, and she doesn't fight back on it at all.
Yeah.
And that makes me a little sad.
That does make me sad, but I feel like she may have called him in and she may have been there and been like, this is what's happening. And this is my team, so you have to handle it. And I will just be here because I know them.
Yeah, but then I would still not like that. I would still not like her being the one
That's
to make
fine.
the decision that he's crazy.
That's fine too, yeah.
Yeah. Um, who is your MVP?
Um, I guess Sam. She had the closest thing to a real emotion when they were in the padded cell with
Fair.
Daniel. And she also figured out how everything worked in the end to fix it all.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick Daniel because he, despite having a parasite in his brain, was still the only one to figure out what was going on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
So,
fair.
yeah, well, with no theories of what's happening next, I guess the next thing we can do is just tell you where to find us online, which is at deathandaliens@gmail.com and at all of the social media at Death and Aliens. You can find me at EMKAY_superstar.
And you can find me at CE Cloud 13.
And happy 200 episodes of Death and Aliens. We'll
Happy
see
200
you.
episodes.
We will see you on Thursday for our Thriller Thursday. I almost couldn't say the word thriller for a second. Our Thriller Thursday
Sorry.
episode. Bye.